All right, good morning, bows and bow ties. Black opinionated woman here, also known as a bow. I want to welcome anyone who is joining in on my channel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, um, I currently have this titled "Soft Life for Black Children or Black Kids: Changing the Narrative." I don't know if this title will remain. But let me start off by saying this. I was in book club last week, and it's kind of like tangentially, kind of, sort of, a little bit, a lot of bit related. And we were discussing the book. It was written by Sonia Curry, the mother of Stephen Curry, who plays for the Golden State Warriors. It was called A Fierce Love. And in our book club, we were discussing um, our thoughts on the book. And what I didn't know at the time was as I was reading this, I would have probably read it differently, but I believe, or we believe, she was writing this book while she was going through a divorce. I didn't know that. So then I probably would have been a little bit more lenient, but in terms of what I thought about how the book was written. Um, so there were some interesting tidbits in the book, but ultimately, the title of the book was called A Fierce Love. And in the book, um, I may have to come off camera, guys, because this is so bright. So I may just have to put my avatar on. But in the book, she kind of rules over her children with an iron fist. Very authoritarian, like just tough, 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 tough. And I guess to me, I know I have standards and I can be tough on my kids, but I do think there has to be a gray area, a soft area. And I say soft for a reason. But there has to be a soft area. I am Gen X. I'm on the younger side of Gen X, but I am Gen X. And I grew up during a time when it was like, I didn't really get a lot of spankings. I think I maybe have gotten one or two in my life, but generally speaking, you know, uh, my upbringing was such that, I grew up with all the old things, like you can go pick a switch or whatever. But where I'm going with this was, I think because of the era in which I was brought up, so many people like me were used to parents being just really just tough and unyielding and do as I say, not as I do. Now I'm painting I'm broad brushing here, so if it doesn't apply, let it fly. And when I say these things, not everything really applied to me. Anyway, so when I was listening to her talk about how she was a mother and how she parented and all these things, and I was like, I am not 100% like her. No one is really 100%. I don't like anybody. Okay, so let me get into why I wanted to talk about this soft life for Black kids. For one, I don't think Black kids should always have to earn everything. Yeah, that's going to sound crazy, but I want you to just stick with me as I fumble through this because I feel like I'm going to fumble through this and hopefully you pick up with what I am attempting to put down. I'm not talking about earning, scholarship or something like that. Or maybe I am. I don't know. Where I'm going with it is sometimes it's okay for kids to be given something. I feel oftentimes our Black children are forced to have to be tough all the time. And they have to earn this and be tough and deal with struggle. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I believe I don't care what your means are, whatever spoil looks like to you. Okay? So you could be of meager means, but let's say you have, I don't know, a container of cookies. And every once in a while, well, my kids don't eat cookies in the morning, but it's a bad example. But like letting the kids just eat the cookie, even if it's not for dessert, that's a really bad example. What I'm saying is, regardless of where you sit in the spectrum in terms of time, resources, etc. I think that Black children have to be allowed to live the soft life too. And the soft life is going to vary based on your means and stuff. And what I mean by that is, I don't want everything to be so rigid for these kids where it's like everything is devoid of joy. It's just devoid of like luxury. It's just devoid of some, I don't want to say laziness because this is not giving the sentiment that I'm trying to convey here. But I feel like oftentimes our our Black children are painted as these tough kids. And I don't like that. I mean, because they are tough, but I like for kids to also be able to sit in their emotions for a minute. No, I'm not talking about just crying and having meltdowns all the time because you need to know how to handle adversity. But I feel like Black children need to be given space to hurt and acknowledge the hurt. I think we also need to give them space to not just, we got to do this, accomplish, we got to do this, accomplish more, do this, rigid, discipline, achieve. Like, I feel like we got to give them space in this soft life where they can discover other parts of themselves that they normally wouldn't have that opportunity to discover. You, I feel like because we have collectively been put into a situation in the community, and look, like I said, if it doesn't apply, let it fly, because not all things apply to me. But I feel like we've been collectively put into this position where our children, it's like, go achieve in sports, go achieve in this. I want this house clean, you know, you better not talk back. And all those things should still be valid. But I feel like our kids should have space to enjoy the soft life too, to be lazy sometimes so that this is not coming off the way I want, but to be able to enjoy rest. Maybe that's the word, rest and relaxation. And in that, it allows for them to discover talents and interests they never would have before. It allows for them to it's almost like transformational where you are discovering in your rest because your mind is allowed to wander. Like your body doesn't have to constantly be under duress, like the tight, right? You get to have wonder. You get to be creative. You know what? When you're resting, you perform better in school. Now, when I say all these things, I don't want to give this impression that like my kids don't have chores and know they do a horrible job of them. I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to raise these wimpy kids because I feel like sometimes I need to be a little bit. Sorry, my alarm cut you off. I said there are times when I feel like I need to be able to show more grace and mercy to my kids, right? But what I'm getting at is when we are willing to give our kids a little bit more of the soft life, it's more like giving them opportunities that we didn't have. Like I know oftentimes there's a mentality where it's like, well, I had to do this and you need to do this too. And I feel like no. There are times when it's like, well, maybe I had to do this and now I've worked hard so that you don't have to. I want to make it so that you don't have to be stressed. I want to make it so that you can explore something else. You can discover something else. And I think I'm gonna have to come off of camera at some point because I am like out here in these streets and I got this light on and I know people are like, what is she doing in her car? I feel like this video is not clear. Anyway, So when I talk about this off life with these kids, I just feel like we need to be willing to say or to, to do things where these kids have an opportunity to be at peace and rest and have a period of discovery and not have to be so tense and it's not so rigid. And I feel like it shouldn't have to come at a major cost all the time. Like we should just give it. It should be given. Let me see. I wrote a couple of notes down, and I don't even think I went in order in which I wanted to present this. But I think the main thing is softness is kind of a luxury, but I don't want it to be like this big luxury. It needs to be more of just a human right, if possible. Like I said, like I am fumbling over my words here because I did not go according to the couple of bullets that I had written down. But I just wanted to just speak because I feel like when I see kids all the time, like at least our kids, like we are trying so hard to prepare them for this harsh world. And we need to remember at home, it needs to be soft. At home is safety. At home is where you rest. At home is where you can have periods of discovery. At home is where you can be creative. And at home, you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to be on. You don't have to be on. A neighbor of mine asked me one time about why I don't typically invite people into my home. And I told her, she's so awesome, by the way, but I told her, I said, home is where I feel my peace, where I rest. I was like, when I leave my house, I go out into a world, and not that this is hampering me, but I go to places where I am not represented, right? Like whether it's at work, whether it's in the store, whatever, my bridges where I live. I was like, so when I get home, that's my space, that's my peace, that's my family. And I generally don't like to invite a whole bunch of people into my home anyway, regardless of what you look like or anything like that. It's my place of peace. So you will very rarely see me invite people over. I don't want to entertain people in my home. I just don't want to. Because that's where I experience the soft life. I don't have to be on. I can dress however I want. Um, I can be the soft person that I am. But I just feel like that's what we need for our kids. I think our kids should be experiencing the soft life too. It shouldn't just be for other people. Our kids should be able, like something so simple like I know, like when if you are fortunate to be able to go out to dinner on occasion, we let our kids order what they want. How are they ever going to learn? We want them to try new foods, right? It shouldn't always just be like, no, don't do this. This is too expensive. Like, try it. Now, granted, we are very fortunate that we can do that on occasion. Um, is that the norm? No. I feel like I said, I'm fumbling through this. Did I miss anything? Oh, you know what it is? I underlined something. I feel like, uh, sorry, something popped into my phone. I feel like when our kids are allowed the opportunity to rest, to be cared for and nurtured, I feel like our kids realize that they are valued. Like everything about them doesn't have to be so transactional. I gotta do this, and I gotta do this for other people. Now it's more like they are catered to too. Now, granted, of course, the parents rule the house. But what I'm saying is, when they're home, it's like they are realizing they are valued. They are loved. They're not just here to serve people, to just do this, accomplishments, just accomplish this, be this, do that. I'm like, be who you are. Like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job. Like I said, I knew I was going to fumble over this, but hopefully people are getting the gist of what it is that I'm trying to say. I think when you allow kids to experience that soft life at home, for sure, or even externally, I think they start to realize how much they are valued because they're treated like they're precious, right? Usually, when you're part of the soft life, like you value certain things, like you're treated a certain way. That's what I want my kids to recognize and understand that they are valued, they are loved, we sacrifice for them. Not all the time, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, good to see. Um, I think the biggest thing with the soft life too, well, I should say the biggest thing. One of the other things I was going to say is making sure that they are just exposed to other things than like the norm, allowing their minds to wander. I said wander. I meant wander. Allowing themselves to be put in just completely different environments, scenarios, trying different foods, experiencing new people. Let me tell you something. Just trying different sports, going differently, like, like granted, and I understand, like, this isn't for everyone, but I just feel like we need to be able to give our kids the soft life. I don't care what your environment or your background is. When the kids are home, there should be an element of the soft life for them. Of course, they got to accomplish their chores and stuff, but it's like allowing them to express themselves, try new things, own their emotions. Like I get on my kids all the time. Like especially if they get way too. I'm like, wait, why are you X? I'm not saying it's always wrong, but I'm like, why? Because certain things don't need certain emotions, right? But just talking to them instead of like, cut that out. I mean, there's times when you need to do that. It's more like, well, what is happening here? Explain to me why you're feeling this way, so I can understand. I don't know. I guess to me, I feel like Black kids should be able to experience the soft life. And we need to change the narrative around how our kids are spoken of. For emotions, softness. I'll say this and then I'll end this. Our children are not these little, I don't know, army warriors. They're not. They're young people. I'm so tired. Sorry. I'm tired. I didn't have my coffee. They're not these I mean, everybody is a machine, but I'm like, they're human people who experience the full range of emotions like everyone else, and I feel like they should be having a soft life. So to wrap this up, this is a good time for anybody who wants to subscribe to my channel to do so right now because I'm amazing and everybody can do no wrong. When I think about that book and I think about when she wrote this book, it sounded like she was so authoritarian. It was just really hard. And if I'm giving some grace, I guess when she wrote this book, she was going through what she was going through. I'm talking about Sonia Curry in A Fierce Love, the book that she wrote. I just felt like when I was reading it at the time, I'm like, where's the grace for these kids if they make a mistake? And I think that's what it is that I want to provide for my kids. I don't believe in gentle parenting, let's be clear. But I also feel like it doesn't have to be so rigid. I have a set of standards at home. Half the time they meet them, half the time they don't. But at least it's there for them to constantly try and achieve. All right, now that I finished fumbling through what it was that I was trying to say, uh, that was just my TED talk. I don't know why this looks so blurry on here, but thank you for listening. Hopefully you'll subscribe, and hopefully I will be back on soon. And until next time, go watch all my videos. Have a good one.